Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. Give us a follow on X at Real Zander and at JF McMullen. Johnny Mac, a big Tuesday edition with some key departures on the Philadelphia Eagles. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, Johnny Mac?
I'm doing fine. Hopefully Eagles fans are doing fine. It's not about one day. Howie told you it was going to be a maintenance off season. Don't panic. It's not the best free agency class in the history of the world. And here's where the smart teams start making their hay in the second phase. Now, there's still some guys. Already this morning, Jonathan Allen signed in Minnesota. He got a big deal. As I expected, he can still play. And the Giants brought in Javon Holland, safety, on a pretty big deal. So there still were little pieces that, but once that goes, and that'll probably go today for the most part, already started. You'll start to get to the second phase, and that's when you try to find the diamonds in the rough, and that's where the Eagles tend to excel. So we'll see how that shakes out.
That's a big deal for Jonathan Allen. That came down a couple minutes ago here before the show. I didn't even see that come in, but that's big money for Jonathan Allen, and that follows up a lot of big money that was dished out across the NFL world yesterday. John, let's start with some of those Eagles departures, though. Milton Williams gets a big deal from the Patriots. 4 years, $104 million with $63 million guaranteed. Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings, another Vikings signing. 2 years, $15 million, $8 million guaranteed. Josh Sweat to the Cardinals, 4 years, $76.4 million with $41 million guaranteed. And then it was topped off by a Kenny Pickett trade to the Browns. But just your overall thoughts on those moves, Johnny Mac, and the
Don't forget Oren Burks. A lot of
panic
over Oren Burks.
Yeah,
it goes to Cincinnati. I said it yesterday when we did a football 24/7. I think all of these moves were expected by the Eagles. Maybe Isaiah Rodgers, a little bit of wiggle room. If they could have gotten him back on a 1 year deal, but once it got to 2 years, the Eagles probably out, is my guess. Same thing with Oren Burks. Once it gets to 2 years, becomes very, very difficult. So I don't think any of this was a surprise to the Eagles, but it hurts, especially coming off Super Bowl, and you got to put an asterisk on Darius Slay. He might be out the door. Still never ends with Slay. It's like, man, is he out? Could he be back? But he's most likely going to be leaving as well. So if you add him into the mix, basically 11% of your Super Bowl winning roster is out the door on the first day of free agency. So when you look at it like that, the people start getting on the bridges. But, when you think about the NFL and the nature of it, 30% turnover basically every year, it's just part of it. And when guys, we talked after the Super Bowl, when guys like Milton Williams and Josh Sweat are good players and perform like that on the biggest stage, they're getting paid. And they got paid. And Milton Williams got the biggest contract in New England Patriots history. Now, I think people that watch this show, people that know me, I like Milton a lot. And I think he's a really good player. Is he the best player in New England Patriots history? No. So when you start with that expectation, because that's the expectation now in New England, this is the biggest contract in Patriots history. You got to be a star. Is Milton a star? I don't think he is. And I love the guy. I think he's really, really good. I think Eagles fans have talked themselves into the fact that he's not really good because they don't want to think about losing him. And Jalen Carter's better, yes. And anybody who's playing next to Jalen Carter is going to ascend a little bit. Are they going to ascend to Milton's level last year? I doubt it. So that's where I am with Milton Williams, but he was going to get paid. Josh Sweat was going to get paid. And then the other guys, Isaiah Rodgers, like I said, that, once Minnesota goes to 2 years, and plus he gets the opportunity to start there. Not that he wouldn't have the opportunity to start here, but he knows that the Eagles want Kaylee Ringo to win the job. So, to me here, Ringo's penciled in. Out in Minnesota, Rodgers is penciled in. He might not win the job, but he's penciled in. So there's a difference from that perspective. Plus the second year, Warren Burks. Boy, I got a lot of people who were panicked over Warren Burks.
Yeah, I got a lot of that too. People not happy we didn't bring back Warren Burks, John.
You don't pay backup linebackers $2.5 million a year. All you got to do is look at Warren's contract last year, 1.125, veteran minimum, 1 year.
Is that one? I mean, I guess people would say, is that $1 million worth saving when he was a good backup? Especially with the Nakobe Dean injury right now. I understand why people wanted to bring him back. I get a kick out of people like, oh my God, we didn't bink back Warren Burks. Like, we'll be okay, guys. We will be okay with that.
Not when you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and they do like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and that was probably the plan all along, to escalate. A lot of people are saying, oh, see, the Eagles got rid of Kenny Pickett. They traded Kenny Pickett to get rid of Tanner McKee. No, Kenny Pickett was the backup quarterback the entire year. The Eagles were very comfortable with it. Even when he got hurt, he was the backup quarterback. Now he's set to make $2.7 million, $2.75 million, which isn't a ton for a backup quarterback. But from the Eagles' perspective, they were able to flip it to Cleveland for a quarterback they liked in the draft. And now you have another year of experience and development behind the scenes for Tanner McKee. Maybe he seizes the job. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe DGR beats him out. But whatever. That's an Eagles move. That's sort of what they do and try to flush out this value. And that was probably the most Eaglesy move on day one of free agency. Letting guys out the door was always expected, and the Eagles are prepared for it. Now, my question is, and my issue is, if there is an issue, and I say it all the time, this organization has become one of the best in football with their philosophy, and they steered away from their philosophy, which is building both sides of the front first and foremost. I don't love that. Now, I'm also, you got to make difficult decisions, because I've said pretty much from the start they had to sign Zach Bond. So,
well, I mean, would the pushback be, John, they do have 3 first-round picks on that defensive line. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong in that they didn't lose good players, but from their estimation, they might be like, well, this is why we spent 3 first-rounders on these draft, on this defensive line.
Yeah, but the strength of the Eagles has always been they come at you in waves on the defensive front. They come at you in waves. They won 8 guys. Last year, it fell down to 7 because of the injuries, Brandon and Bryce. But, when they come into it, they won 8 guys. And the goal is to have guys, 100% in the fourth quarter if it's a close game and everybody's got, all their conditioning in place and all that kind of stuff. They come at you in waves. The Super Bowl is a perfect example of this. Now, you can say, well, it's a lot easier to deal with Jalen Carter if Milton Williams isn't out there. It's a lot easier to deal with Josh Sweat if Nolan Smith isn't out there playing well, or vice versa. And you could say, all right, I'm going to slide to this guy. I'm going to slide to this guy. If you do that against the Eagles, the other guy's going to beat you. And who beat you in the Super Bowl was Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, the Kansas City Chiefs. They're very expensive, but it's just atypical of the Eagles. Yeah. And Howie said that. He prepared it. This is not going to be a typical off season.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to you too, because I remember after that press conference with Howie, I asked you, what do you make of it? And you went right down that road. And I didn't hear many people go down that road of, I think Howie tipped his hand on something here. And, it's really all played out exactly how he kind of insinuated it would if you read the tea leaves.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to take credit for it because I kind of knew that's what he was talking about, and from different avenues. That's exactly what he was talking about, because that's their history, and he has stated it again and again and again and again. Offensive line as well, and they steer away from it. And it's ironic that they win the Super Bowl, and I think everybody gets caught up. They win the Super Bowl when they finally get an off-ball linebacker and they finally get a running back. But they've had good running backs, but a superstar running back. The two positions they've devalued. But and there's no doubt the performances of those two particular players, they were phenomenal. All first-team All-Pros. They had two first-team All-Pros. They were Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond. Top 5 defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year, rushing record, splash plays all over the place for Zach Bond. Those players are phenomenal. Nobody's disputing that. But it's also those players don't win, even with those seasons, without the foundation in place.
Right.
That defensive front and that offensive line. They don't. So when you let good players out the door at those particular positions, that does worry me a little bit.
No doubt about it. Johnny Mac, I want you to give your objective take for Eagles fans here, and I'll ask you what you think is the biggest loss, and we'll talk a little bit about that. A couple other good questions for you here in the open here. But the objective take, as objective as you can be on this team, and people are not sounding the alarms, but some people are like, well, that's a lot of turnover. And I get it. You're losing some good players here, and obviously you have to recoup. But all good from the Eagles front? You think this is still a team that's ready to compete, or are you like, whoa, this is a lot of turnover. Let's see, what they do to recoup it. Where are you on that scale from the Eagles' perspective right now?
No, they don't. I mean, like I said, they lost 11% of the roster. There's 30% turnover. This is going to happen. It happens every year. So no, but you have to make decisions. You have to make good decisions like they did last year about replacing guys. You can't just say, I'm going to elevate Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith, and they're going to be starters, and I'm going to elevate Moro Ajomo, and I'm going to you can't just do that. You got to bring in competent competition. If these guys grab the baton and earn it, that's fine. But, and by the way, the Eagles aren't going to do that. They're going to bring players in. It never fails every day. March 10th, you asked me last night on the show on Football 24/7 who was the winner of day one, and I said Chicago. To me they got they've gotten 3 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen. That's what I believe in. And they're starting to build the right way. I guarantee in February of next year, I'm not saying the Chicago Bears win the Super Bowl still. I mean, they got a ways to go. Winning free agency isn't what it's about, but everybody overreacts to the first day of free agency. Even in a bad year like this, where it's supposed to be a bad free agent class, everybody still wants the players they recognize the names. Like Jonathan Allen signs this morning. I said, the guy's going to be expensive because he's going to chase rings. That stuff is unrealistic. Like nobody who can make $60 million, and it was 33, is going to come here for $8 million to
these
chase
are professionals. I mean, yeah.
So, I mean, you got to be realistic about it, but there's still plenty of good players out there, and the Eagles will sign some of them at some point. But it's not going to be like it was last year. They're going to rely, how we said, maintenance off season. The salary cap is an issue for the Eagles. It's malleable, yes, but that doesn't mean you can do anything you want. And this is going to be a little bit different. He signaled it. Now you're seeing it. He wasn't lying.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, what's the biggest loss here for the Birds? Josh Sweat or Milton Williams on that defensive line?
I think Milton, because of his age, probably when you think of the depth they have on hand, probably Josh, but they have a little bit more depth at defensive tackle. But Milton, because of his age and shelf life, and he's got a chance to be a really good player for a really long time. And Josh is a little bit further along. So, I never thought they could get both of them back, but I think if he moved around enough deck chairs, he could have gotten one of them back. And I think they should have gotten one of them back. But, the guy they probably wanted back was Milton, and he was just too expensive. And I can't argue that because, is he a $26 million a year player? When if he's a $26 million player in 2025, what do you think Jalen Carter is going to be next year? So again, it's more.
40. He's getting 40. He's got to get 40, John.
It's more than about the moment, too. That's what I think everybody doesn't realize.
Right.
They know what's coming down the pike. It's not like they're going to wake up and go, oh shit, we gotta pay Jalen Carter next year. That's part of the reason they didn't pay Melton Williams this year. Probably the biggest part of the reason, to be honest. Not that they think Milton's not a good player. Can he pay $135 million and $126 million without affecting parts of the team? No. So you got to make these difficult decisions.
John, what about replacements for these players? Let's start with Milton and Josh. Who's harder to replace? I just asked you which one's the bigger loss. I actually differ with you. I think I know you were kind of a toss-up, but I have Sweat just because I feel like you need edge production in today's NFL, and I do feel okay with Jalen Carter on the interior. But what's the replacement plan look like for these guys, and who's harder to replace for this Eagles team?
Well, I think they're both hard to replace. I would think that there's more in-house optimism. It's difficult. There's in-house optimism for Moro Ajomo and Jalix Hunt. Now Jalix has the better pedigree, but to me, they need two defensive ends or edge rushers or outside linebackers, whatever your favorite labeling sequence is. They need two. So to me, just the position as a whole, edge is a bigger problem because they need multiple bodies at edge, in my estimation. Now, hopefully, from their perspective, they think Bryce Hupp is going to be better. I know that's not going to excite people, but and then that limit, that would help greatly. I don't know if it's something you can count on, but the Eagles are counting on a lot of things. They're counting on Kaylee Ringo. They're counting on Jalix Hunt. They're counting on Moro Ajomo. They're counting on Jeremiah Trotter Jr. to be linebacker 3 when Nakobe Dean is rehabbing.
Yeah. Another thing Howie said, by the way, when he spoke, where young guys are going to
guys are going to have to play. Yeah. And even Tanner McKee getting elevated. Or if it turns out to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's a very young player as well. It's dangerous to go with young backup quarterbacks. It's always dangerous.
We'll see what ends up happening. A lot of turnover here for the Philadelphia Eagles. A crazy day in the NFL. Johnny Mac, before we move forward, we'll continue the Eagles talk. We'll talk to Chris Franklin in hour number 2. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here on this Tuesday morning of Birds 365. This has got to be the most fun, maybe next to the draft, the most fun week of the offseason, where there's just moves constantly. Every time you refresh your feed, there's a new NFL move. So I love seeing where all the new players are going and everything. So appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate you guys joining in on the reaction and the breakdown with us here on Birds 365. John, before we move into some more Eagles topics, I do want to ask you about the craziness of the NFL world yesterday, man. Deals coming left and right, big money deals. What stuck out to you the most? I know you talked about the Bears a little bit, but any other deal that you liked? I'll give you one deal in the NFC that I liked. I liked Poona Ford to the LA Rams because they know they need to stop the run.
Yeah,
Based on
I'm
their
getting
couple of games
somebody,
versus the
getting
Eagles.
somebody with some size.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, the best one. I mean, I'd have to think about that because it involves value. As far as almost inherently, as I said, the guys with the biggest money are going to be disappointments. That's just the way it works because they're good players getting paid like great players. And if you look at the biggest deals on day one, Milton was number one, by the way. Sam Darnold was number two, which makes sense because of the position. Actually, it shocks me he wasn't number one. And there's, one report. His first report was 110. He would have been number one. Then it was 100. So I assume the 100 is correct, but I don't know that. Dan Moore was third. I mean, I guarantee he's cut in 2 years. Guarantee it. I hate to be blunt about it, but guarantee it. Dan Moore?
Yeah. I said that yesterday when it happened live. I was live on the air when that deal came in. I'm like, oof.
Aaron Banks was again, and look at where it is. And then Josh Sweat. So the Eagles 2 of 5. Defensive front, 2 guys. Offensive line, 2 guys. Quarterback. So there it is. As far as the value, I'll try to formulate one in the break. I haven't thought about it, but yeah, that's not a bad one because Poona Ford's a big dude and they can rush the passer. But
yeah, I mean, that's why
they're the worst run defense team I've ever seen in my life. So a lot of that had to do, they're further behind the arc of the Eagles. I mean, their middle linebacker, I hate to pick on that guy. He was a freaking embarrassment. Christian Roseboom.
Yeah.
My God.
You picked on him when we played him in the playoffs.
Oh, my Lord. I've never seen anything like it. Now the Eagles offensive line can make people look silly, but he was not equipped. So to get a big body to keep hopefully keep bodies off a player like you got to improve over a player like that, but that's up to the Rams. But yeah, just looking at those were the most expensive contracts of day one. And, maybe I'm biased, but I like Josh Sweat going with Jonathan Gannon, and I like Milton Williams. The other 3, I'm like, I love Sam Darnold, but I mean, they just let DK Metcalf walk out the door and Tyler Lockett.
I know. What are we doing here? I said the same thing. I'm like, all right, good. You got him. Now what? Now who's he throwing to? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't get that. Yeah. Maybe if they can protect him a little better.
Now, it's one day. I mean, it's one day. Everybody's they're going to add receivers.
Yeah, but
everybody's like panic stricken because their team didn't get so-and-so. It's one day. They're going to fill the holes.
John, who was your loser of yesterday? Because I got one in mind, and I'm wondering if you have the same one. Maybe you haven't thought about it, but I have one in mind that's a big loser, in my opinion, from yesterday's day.
Losers. Well, I mean, in one day, the Eagles were, I just said, 2 of the top 5 contracts were Eagles. So, I mean, if you're being honest,
mine doesn't have to do with losing players. I will say that.
So anyway, if you have to look seriously, I'm trying to think, I have to give credit to Ryan Poles, which I don't like to do.
Yeah, he's done good.
Losers. I don't know. I mean, Jerry Jones because of his
I got the New York Jets.
Oh, that's a good one.
I should have said the Jets. Fields to 2 years, and you're trying to turn this thing around with a new coach? Are you kidding me? I hated that move.
That's it. That's a good one. That's a good one. That is, this is not the year you want to be looking for a quarterback.
No, it's not.
There's one quarterback, and he's gone. That Las Vegas was able to flip and get a decent quarterback. Not that Gino's great, but and that opened the door for Sam in Seattle. There's one quarterback and he's gone. That's it. And you can get Cam Ward in the draft if you're Tennessee or Cleveland, depending on what Tennessee does. This is not the year to be looking for a quarterback. And yeah, the fact that we're even trying to, and I got a good friend who's a Jets fan, and he can talk himself into anything. And he's already talking himself into it. I'm like, dude, I always tell the story when the Eagles were out in Chicago, the game that Jalen got hurt in 2022. It was brutally cold. That's what I remember most. But second was, I mean, you need a sundial to measure this guy's processing. I've never seen anybody hold on to the ball longer than just he is just brutal. Yeah, that is a good luck. New York football is going to be awful again.
Yeah, brutal. Absolutely brutal. I wonder what our old friend Jody Mack is thinking of. Just remember how much he loved.
Oh, he loved Justin Fields coming out in the draft.
Fields. It was one of our videos. I remember posting it that Jody Mack loved Justin Fields. Well, Jody, now he's in New York with you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind him coming out, but once you get to see a player, I mean, you got to get off college production. I mean, you just. And even in Pittsburgh, he won some games. Pittsburgh played a certain style to keep the football out of his hands. The more he throws it, the more trouble you're probably going to be in. And that's never a good thing with a quarterback.
No doubt about it. We'll see what ends up happening there for that. Johnny Mack, I want to ask you about two guys that no moves on yet. All right. Mekhi Becton. I'm wondering what's going on with him. I thought he would be a name that creeped up, especially with the way the offensive linemen were getting paid yesterday. You mentioned the one contract, Dan Moore gets like $80 million. I was
waiting. Yeah, well, he's a tackle. But Aaron Banks.
He's not that good of a tackle.
No, he's okay. He's average. But again, now he's going to, because people in Tennessee are going to see that contract and say, oh, we got a great tackle. No, you didn't. You got an average to an above average tackle. Same thing with Aaron Banks in Green Bay. He's okay. He's not a bad player, but now he's getting paid top of the market money. So you expect him to be a Pro Bowl level guard. He's not going to be. With Mekhi, I've said it 100 times on this show. It's more difficult negotiation than people realize for a lot of different reasons. And you're seeing some of that uncertainty around the player. Some of it health related, some of it position related, some of it old habits die hard. When you play poorly as a high-level first-round pick, people say, well, you only did it for a year. Think about Darnold, the quarterback. Oh, you only did it for a year. It's hard for people to change their minds. They want to be right. And Mekhi played really well last year, and I think the longer he stays out there, the better for the Eagles. I'll say that.
I agree with that for sure. We'll see what ends up happening. I think he could be a guy that comes off the board today. We will see what ends up happening. But obviously, with day 2 of free agency here, plenty of moves still to happen. John, the other guy I'm curious about here in Eagle Land, it's Dallas Goedert. I know yesterday he's not a free agent, so it wasn't really a day for him. But I don't know how they're going to let him walk. And I saw a report from Inside the Birds. I don't know if it's true or not, but they gave him permission to seek a trade. I don't know if that's true or not, but any update on Dallas Goedert? What is this team going to do? What could change their thinking, if anything? I have a hard time believing they're letting him walk out the door and replacing him with a rookie, but that's what people seem to think. Where are you on the Dallas Goedert stuff and anything more you can tell us?
Well, first of all, half the league is available in trade. I mean, everybody. Now, Eagles again at the forefront. They did it with Hassan Reddick. They did it with Josh Sweat. Bit him in the ass with Josh Sweat, in my opinion, because of what happened, what unfolded. But what they're doing is saying, hey, All right, you don't believe us. This is not your market value. Go out and see your market value and come back to us. And from the Eagles' perspective, it's all right if we can get a 4th-round pick and somebody wants to give him 3 years. Godspeed. And, you know, the more likely scenario is he goes out and says, same thing people say here. Oh, he's post 30. He's missed games because of injury. Probably not as high as he and his agent think it is. And then he comes back and everything's copacetic. They guarantee his money for this year. They tack on some money for next year and you move forward. They did the same thing with Slay as well.
Right.
They do it all the time now. And so if you've seen it leading up to free agent, how many guys got permission to seek trades? That's what's going on. It's not about necessarily moving on. It's about, all right, you don't believe us? Go look and see what your value is. And most of the time, it aligns with what the team believes. And you can work something out. And that's happened in the past with Slay and Sweat. And Hassan was just, he was out the door. But he just wanted outrageous money. And you saw where Hassan is now. Never got that outrageous money. Signed a 1-year deal for 12 million, I think, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's what it was. 14 million with 12 million guaranteed.
Yeah, that didn't work out for him either. So that's what they're doing. But half the league, don't get upset about guys being requested. That all that is check your market,
right,
and that kind of thing.
And get back to me. Let me know what we can do. John, I do not like this for a couple different reasons. All right. You're telling me they re-signed Saquon Barkley, which is great. All right, whatever. They didn't have to do it, but they decided to do it. They bring back Saquon Barkley, give him a little bit of a pay raise and an extra year of guaranteed money. Awesome. That signals to me, okay, we're going to stick with the philosophy that we established last year offensively, which is run the football. Now you're going to get rid of potentially Mekhi Becton and Dallas Goedert. Now, both of those guys are not out the door yet. They could both return, but that's going to change the running game a lot, in my opinion, John. What do you say?
Well, I have to see what the resulting moves are. Are they drafting Anthony Belton, the guy we talked about? Are they signing or trading for a tight end who can block? Again, you're probably not going to find a tight end who can do both to the level of Dallas Goedert, but you can piecemeal it out. You could have, your blocking tight end. That's what most teams do. Blocking tight end, your receiving tight end, and go about it that way. Might even be in-house. Might even have him. Might be Nick Muse. I don't know. Big dude. That's his reputation. Coming out of college at South Carolina, he's a blocker. Maybe he's good at it. I have no idea. He's only, came in the playoffs. He was with the Vikings practice squad, and after their season ended, he signed with the Eagles. That was the greatest season in NFL history. Won 14 games there, and then he came here and won a Super Bowl. So I don't know. Maybe he can block, but you can get a tight end who can block. Are you going to get a well-rounded tight end? I'm not as concerned about the blocking part of it. They'll get somebody who can block. The question is, do you become too, are your tendencies exposed? If this guy's on the field, you're going to run it. If this guy's on the field, if Calcaterra's on the field, you're going to throw it. That's what you got to be worried about. But, it's going to be different. They're an endangered species, Dallas Goedert type of tight ends.
Yeah, they
George
are.
Kittle type of tight ends. The whole league is go. So eventually you're going to have to go that way anyway. Maybe you trade for Michael Mayer, as we've talked about.
Yeah, he's one good option because he can block well. He can do, he can do both things well. Maybe not as good as Goedert, but he can at least do them.
I still don't know why Las Vegas would trade him other than.
Well, isn't it as simple as Brock Bowers? I mean,
Well, yeah, but you need 2 tight ends. I mean, for
Right.
years, the Eagles had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. I mean, why they have him under a rookie deal? That to me comes later. It's only his second year.
Right. Trade him after year 3 or year
Yeah.
4 when he wants to. Yeah.
So I don't know. Other than they're a bad organization, I haven't checked if I've seen all the rumors, but I don't know if they're realistic. I think that's people sort of saying what you just said. Well, they have Brock Bowers. Like, all right, okay. You need 3 tight ends, really. So there's no harm in having 2 good tight ends. The Eagles did it pretty well. So, but yeah, they're gonna, and they've already, again, at that position, I've said multiple times, they've already signaled by their future signings with Nick Muse and Cameron Latu that we know we have to get better at the depth with tight end.
We'll see what ends up happening there. I think Bob is right. He says Mayer-type players don't fit in a Chip Kelly offense. It might have something to do with that, Chip Kelly over there. And we all know how Chip Kelly doesn't care what his players do well. Chip Kelly wants to do what Chip Kelly wants to do. We'll see what ends up happening there. Let's go to a couple super chats. I want to thank everybody for being here. Still got plenty to talk about. I do want to talk about that cornerback position. How are we feeling on Keely Ringo, everybody? I'll talk to John about that. Let's go to a couple super chats here. Prince Swayze checking in. What's up, Prince? The Eagles are not breaking up the Georgia Bulldogs. We are definitely overreacting, especially J-Mac. You can't sign Milton and Sweat and then Bond. They didn't.
Yeah, I'm definitely amongst the Eagles fan base. I'm definitely the overreacting one.
No, I don't think John overreacted. Come on, Prince.
Yeah, I look at the foundational philosophy. That's where which has served this team well.
Which, by the way, you're right. They did stray from it. They had a defensive lineman and a defensive end that were 27 and 25, hit the market. They paid the linebacker and the running back instead. Yeah. I mean, come on, Prince. That's a stray from the philosophy.
Yeah, that's just common sense. I mean, I can't help you there, Prince, if you can't recognize that. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Love you, Prince, but I don't agree with that one, brother. Appreciate you being here, though. Appreciate the $10 super chat. Jason 18 with $20. Thank you, Jason. He says, I'm confused about the designated June 1 cut with Slay. I thought you can designate 2 before June 1st, and he's a free agent now, but I'm hearing he can't sign until after June 1st. If that's the case, why have designation then? It's a good question by 18. John, your response.
Well, it hasn't been released yet. And he hasn't been released yet with that post June 1st designation. That was a report. I forget who had it first, and the Eagles have done this in the past. Clear indication they're still mulling things over. Can we bring him back? Do we want to bring him back? Are we comfortable with Ringo? Did they believe they were going to get Rodgers back? That might have changed the thinking. They haven't released him. Until that name comes on the wire.
Is there a reason for that, or?
Yeah, they're mulling it over. That's,
but
just what I said.
Put it out there. Slay's like shopping to get signed, but they haven't released him. I'm a little confused.
Well, they did the same thing in 2023 when he almost went to Baltimore. They were going to release him.
Big Dom can strike a deal.
Well, no, they were legit going to release him. At that time, it was a little bit different. They were legit. They said, hey, we're going to release you because we can't pay this.
Right.
And then they gave him the opportunity to say, hey, but go look what I just said. Go look in the open market, see what you can get. He was comfortable with something he could get from Baltimore. Then the Eagles came back and said, oh, shit, we want you. And then Dom made the call. This time, I don't know the exact circumstances other than they're planning to release him with a post-1st June designation. Again, maybe the Rodgers thing complicated things because my initial assumption was they'd re-sign Rodgers on a 1-year deal and they let him compete with Ringo, hope Ringo wins the job, but you have that safety net. Now that safety net is gone, maybe they're having second thoughts. Maybe they're saying, can we go 1 more year? Blah, blah, blah. But to Jason's point, they haven't technically released him. So nothing has happened. There's no post-June 1st designation. They haven't released him yet. The plan is to release him with a June 1st designation. If they do that, he can sign at any time.
Right. Is it a little bit of, is it a little messed up from the player perspective? Like, is Slay like, what the fuck? He goes, release me if you're going to release me, or is it not really like
No,
that?
I'm sure from Slay's been very honest in saying, if everything's equal, he'd rather play in Philadelphia, he'd rather finish here. So I don't think he cares as much as only if it derails if he's going to sign with Pittsburgh, which is most likely. If it derails that, then I'm sure he'll get pissed. But
Yeah.
I don't think it'll get to that point. I think, it'll work out. It'll probably get released and he'll probably sign at Pittsburgh, is my guess.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. Speaking of cornerbacks and Slay there, Jason A-Team, thank you for the super chat, brother. Appreciate your support. As always, one of our great members here on JAKIB Sports. Appreciate everybody listening in right now. Don't forget to hit that like button for us on the show. A big day one. And it wasn't even really day one. Day one is supposed to be tomorrow, March 12th. But the legal negotiating period, John, is really the first day of free agency, because basically most
everything's done by Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, most deals.
But I'll say this: there's always one or two every year deal that is reported. Somebody backs out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll see if something changes here on some of the deals that came down yesterday. A lot of big money yesterday. John, I do want to talk to you about the cornerbacks, but real quick, before I get to that, let me just real quick run down the NFC East with you real quick, because there's not too much to talk about. The Giants didn't do a whole lot. The Cowboys didn't do a whole lot. They signed a guard. They signed a Javonte Williams.
They never do a whole lot.
They never do. And, whatever. And then the Eagles didn't do much. And then the one Commander signing that I didn't like, they traded for Laramie Tunsil, which I thought was a good improvement on the offensive line. They signed Javon Kinlaw to a 3-year, $45 million deal with $30 million guaranteed. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's a pain in the ass, number one. And then number two, he's overrated. And number three, you already had Jonathan Allen. Not even close to Jonathan Allen, in my estimation. Yeah, I haven't liked I didn't like the Debo trade. Yeah, I don't like some of the stuff Washington is doing. I thought Adam Peters had a great first year. I think he's getting caught up in some of that.
Yeah,
and you think about, Kinlaw used to be in San Francisco as well. There are other teams that you can pick from. Come on, dude. Now, Tunsil I like. That's a good player at an important position. But, yeah, I didn't like that one either. I just don't think he's that good. He's certainly not Jonathan Allen.
No, and they didn't. I mean, I don't know. How much guaranteed money did Jonathan Allen get? 40?
I haven't seen. I think it's in the 30s.
I mean, because Kinlaw got $30 million guaranteed in a 3-year deal for $45 million. I think Jonathan
Allen
definitely
got more than that.
He made $20 million a year average annual value. His guaranteed, let's just call it 40. I mean, come on. Yeah, $5 million more to go for Jonathan Allen. Maybe they just wanted to. Maybe the player was done in Washington. Maybe they just needed to move.
Yeah, that's a strange one because he was hurt last year, so maybe it's one of that factors into it as well. Maybe they think he's breaking down. I don't know. I know when he's out there, he's good.
They got worse in the defensive line. That's not. I don't think that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, because I had a lot of Eagles fans saying, "Well, get Jonathan Allen." I'm like, that ain't happening. Somebody's paying. You asked me on the show. I said somebody's paying that dude.
Yeah. The other guy that came out yesterday was that Grady Jarrett from Atlanta. I thought he was
Chicago.
He got pretty big money too.
Yeah, Grady's a good player.
Yeah, he is
aging, but yeah, Chicago got 3 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen. So they are shifting gears to a better philosophy, evidently.
Yeah. There you go. Ryan Poles finally figured it out over there. Which, hey, it's all right. I mean, it does take time.
Hey,
Howie Roseman
time to learn.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of teams. Again, I've been praising the Bears way too much. A lot of teams would have fired Ryan Poles by now.
Well, I appreciate that you're praising them because I do think it's one thing to be bad and make bad decisions and then continue to make bad decisions over and over again. The Bears have made some good decisions, some bad decisions in the last couple of years. The bad decisions were obviously more costly than the good decisions were. And this year, they're I think so far they've done a good job. So I think he
Well,
does.
I think the important part to learn from that is young GMs need to learn from their mistakes, but you can only learn from your mistakes if you have time to learn from your mistakes.
So true.
A lot of teams would have blown him out by now, and you never know. Maybe he has learned. Maybe he's doing things better. Howie was not Howie in his first run, to say the least. He's gotten extensive experience, and that's half the battle of why he's smarter than the majority of his peers' experience. And going through it and making mistakes and correcting from those mistakes. That's half the battle. But so few get an opportunity to do that.
No doubt about it.
It's such a reactionary league.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But good stuff there. The Bears did some good things. We'll see if they can compete a little bit in the NFC this year. The one good thing, John, I'll say this: the one good thing I was happy about with all the Eagles' losses was I didn't feel like they went to any, maybe the Vikings, maybe the Cardinals. I don't know. They're NFC teams, but Milton to the Patriots, Darius Slay presumably to the Steelers, Oren Burks to the Bengals, Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings. That didn't really bother me much, and then Sweat to the Cardinals. I felt like, all right, you can keep them on all those teams. That doesn't bother me at all. It's better than going to Washington or going to Dallas or something like that. So I liked where the Eagles guys ended up from an Eagles perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at potential contenders, I mean, only Minnesota would be in there, and Rodgers he's a backup. He's a good backup. And he's going to be a starter for them. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I mean, Cincinnati always has a chance because of their offense to make good decisions, but they don't have a lot of assets we talk about all the time. So, and again, Oren's played great, but he's a backup player. The two players that are legit players went to New England and Arizona. New England, you don't even have to worry about. Right. Arizona, unlikely you have to worry about.
Very unlikely you have to worry about that. We'll see what ends up happening with all that. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, I'll write off a couple super chats, and then we'll talk cornerbacks before we get to Chris Franklin coming up at 9:20. Before I read the super chats, let me quickly tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go and check them out, betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Use the promo code YouTube150. Gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. You get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000 to deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. That's betus.com.pa, betus.com.pa. And a big thanks to them for sponsoring the 2-hour show today here on Birds 365. Let's rattle through a couple of super chats here on the show. Suplex City, John checking in. He says, John, is Reddick an a-hole? He has been consistently underpaid throughout his career. Great match last night. Punk versus Rollins is why I'm a fan. John, let's respond to the Reddick thing first, and then I got something for everybody on WWE. I know we got a big WWE contingency in our
That's my fault, but
listening audience. But your thoughts on Reddick?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hassan is a nice dude, interesting dude, but teams think he's an asshole. That's how I describe it. Yeah. He's very difficult to deal with from a team. Did
you like covering Hassan or what?
Yeah, loved him. Loved covering him. He also had the best year of his career.
Yeah.
Things were running high. And I understood at the time why he wanted to seize the moment. He was never going to have more leverage. I thought he made a mistake. He did that sort of hold in type of thing. Early in camp in the 2023 season. That was his moment. And, he came back and he didn't have as good a season, which was obvious because it was going to be tough to back up that 2022 season. And he just didn't have the same kind of leverage. But to answer the question specifically, I think on a personal level, he's a good dude, but he's very difficult to deal with from a team's perspective, from an organizational perspective.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say this, John? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but would it be fair to say that Josh was more interested in getting sacks than doing what the defense wanted him to do in his final year in Philly.
Not Josh, Hassan, you're talking about.
Hassan,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I don't think that's fair. I think it's just, he wanted his money, and, I don't think it was that 2022 season. And I said it, and that was one of the greatest defensive seasons in Eagles history by any player. He was phenomenal. Then he hurt his hand, if you remember, just wasn't as good in 2023. Now, during the collapse, a lot of people talked about a lot of stuff on the offense, on the defense. Everything collapsed. We're still trying to talk about why did it collapse? Why did it collapse? You look at the offensive numbers, they're exactly the same almost to an eerie level from the 2023 and the 2024 team. One guy got fired and one guy's a head coach in the NFL, because of perceptions.
Right.
Statistically, eerily similar. The difference was the defense between 2023 and 2024. And I think the Eagles made a catastrophic mistake. Not that Sean Desai was good or he wasn't going to get fired, but he was a hell of a lot better than Matt Patricia. And that's when sort of the wheels fell off. And I think a number of reasons. One, you're signaling, that was Nick Sirianni's biggest mistake as a head coach, in my opinion. You're signaling to your team that you're panicking. Because again, they were at the bye week when they were 10-1, I believe. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, you're not playing well defensively, but it had to do with personnel. They had to use 8 slot corners. When shit like that happens, and Avonte Maddox got hurt at the time, and even Bradley Roby got hurt at the time. Not that Bradley Roby was great, but when you get multiple injuries at a position, all right, you don't panic and say, I'm going to fire this guy because there's a bunch of injuries. I thought it was his biggest mistake. So, a lot of people got a lot of gossip, and that's what happens when you lose, and they lost 6 of 7. But I never got the instance of Hassan was this big freelancer. Does he want to get sacks? Yeah. Same thing as receivers. We talked about this yesterday on the show with Josh Sweat. You get paid for getting sacks. So guys want sacks. Receivers want the football. I don't want the edge rusher that doesn't want to get to the quarterback. I don't want the receiver that doesn't want the football.
Good way to put it, Johnny Mac. John, good stuff there. Appreciate it. Suplex City. Brian Pumper goes, we got Johnny Bones Jones Wilson. Thank God we got rid of Kenny Two Gloves. That dude Tanner got all the artillery and
still doing the Johnny Wilson shtick.
I told him, I'm like, dude, this shtick is not as good as the Jalen Hurts shtick. This is a terrible shtick for Pumper.
Yeah, man. It's not gonna resonate. Pumper.
He's like a wrestler. He's falling from grace right now in the shtick. This is not
you gotta shift gears, man. You gotta feel the crowd. If you're The Rock doing a promo, you gotta feel the crowd. You may got to turn heel. You may got to go back to the jail and stuff. Johnny Wilson's not going to resonate with anybody.
Yeah, I told him that. Pump, love you, brother. Bald Eagle says draft strength is edge. Eagles won't overpay for a position with many draft picks to move up and good D-line coach. First, one Super Bowl is won with talent. Second, with coaching. Your thoughts?
That's a lot. Their draft strength is edge. That I agree with. One of the draft strengths, interior as well, defensive front as a whole. That's part of it. The Eagles are probably going to get a decent prospect even at 32. Eagles won't overpay a position with many draft picks to move up and good D-line coach. Yeah. No, I think they will. Well, I don't know what you mean by overpay. I think they've said they'll they'll set the market value for whomever they deem they should set the market value for. And Jalen Carter, you will see that with Jalen Carter. They will set the market. Do they believe Milton Williams is that type of player? No, obviously not. Josh Sweat? No, obviously not. So, no, but they'll believe me, they'll pay those positions. Good defensive line coach. Talking about Clint Hurd or Jeremiah Washburn. They're both good, but I do think fans overrate the coaching aspect of it. Jeremiah coaches the edges. Clint coaches the interior guys. You know, your goal as a coach is to get the guy a little bit better from where they would be without you.
Right.
You know, you got to have talent first, and that's where he goes with talent. Yeah, talent always trumps coaching.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you the wrestling thing. Suplex put the wrestling comment in. Last night I was like trying to doze off. I don't know. The more work we have to do in the middle in the day when there's news breaking and everything, I feel like the harder it is for me to fall asleep. I just stare in there and stare at my ceiling. But I was watching a short 20-minute explanation of the bloodline. All right. Because I had no idea what the hell this was. And I'm like, I don't really understand this whole thing. So now I have an understanding of the bloodline with Roman and I don't like the Uso guys, but Solo Sikoa, I guess it's all split up now. So I'm becoming a little bit more privy to what's going on in the WWE world.
Should have watched last night on Netflix, man. They were at Madison Square Garden, the mecca of professional
Madison Square
wrestling.
Garden, man. That is one of my all-time favorite sports arenas. That place.
That's the most famous arena in the world.
Yeah.
Sold out. Yeah. Should have watched last night. A little Roman Reigns run in on CM.
Is he a heel? Is he a heel technically or what?
He is sort of a tweener, I would describe it.
Come on. Do we like tweeners?
Yeah. Well, you know what? In the modern world, the old baby face versus heel. There's a lot of tweeners. CM Punk's a tweener.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins is a tweener. Roman Reigns. All the best guys are tweeners because you got to do both.
Yeah, you got to play to both sides. That's how you get the biggest fan base, I guess you could say.
And that's why John Cena, a shocking turn, because he had been a babyface for like 20 years. And that's hard to do because most people, and by the way, people shit on John Cena for years because he was a babyface, and they don't like baby faces. And they will eventually turn on Cody Rhodes. Because that's just what they do, man. People don't like good guys anymore.
No, you're right about that. Suo Blaze says, "What's up, guys? Von Miller on a 1 year."
Oh, what the Von Miller? I realize you guys love big names. I realize it, but things are not. You know, if you give me Von Miller in the prime of his career, yeah, I'd love it. He's 35 stinking years old. Now, if it's June and they haven't gotten anything else and he's still there and he wants to go chase a ring, yeah, I'll think about it. And if I haven't gotten somebody I like in the draft, I haven't gotten somebody I like in free agency, he's a Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph type of guy. Last resort type of guy.
You do
35.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. Devin says, "Can Chicago actually compete in the North now?" John, I'll let you respond first, but I got a good response to this as well. So, John, go ahead.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I think Minnesota made a mistake at quarterback, so
Yep.
I think they're not going to be as good. I think Green Bay is good, but they're not great. And Detroit's going to take a big step back with all that upheaval. They lost both coordinators. I don't know what their coordinator situation is going to look like. And Chicago's got a ton of money, and it all hinges on Caleb Williams. And I don't want to, because I'm not the quarterback is the be all end all, but they have everything around him now to at least have a competent offensive line. They have good playmakers
and be able to judge him. Be able to
have a
figure out if
decent
they got
defense.
the guy.
Is he going to step up? I don't know. There's a lot of things I didn't like last year watching Caleb Williams. I thought he was very limited. I thought, he showed some bad signs as a leader. They threw, my love of the bubble screen. I guarantee they led the NFL in bubble screens because now part of it wasn't his fault. They fired the coach. Now the coach was awful.
Yeah,
they shouldn't have had a defensive coach, but then they bring in a guy and they're just throwing bubble. They have no plan. So, I mean, Ben Johnson in theory should be competent. I don't know if he's going to be a good head coach, but I know he's a good play schemer. So he shouldn't have those hurdles to overcome. A lot of things are now in place for Caleb Williams. Nobody doubts the talent, but there's some other stuff you should be doubting. And if he plays well, yeah, they could have a Jaden Daniels type effect in year 2 and be, if not at the top of the division, certainly a playoff team.
Devin, I'll give you my very early NFC North rankings for next year. All right. I got Lions 1 again. I think they're still going to be a pretty good team. They got too much talent. I'm going Bears 2, Packers 3, Vikings 4. I am not a believer in JJ McCarthy. We will see what.
You don't believe in JJ?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in JJ myself.
I mean, look, I'll see it, but he hasn't played yet. Let's see what he can do in year 1 as a starter. And, that's a division that's going.
My concern, even going way back to the draft, is, he won a national championship, obviously, in Michigan. If you have a great quarterback and you're just handing the football off, forget about Jalen Hurts. We say it here. It's like Jalen Hurts times 20. Like they just ran the ball. There would be times they wouldn't even throw the ball in the entire second half. And you're telling me that guy's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft?
This was my whole thing going into that draft. I couldn't believe somebody was willing to take him that high.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I think they made a colossal mistake. But hey, Sam played poorly in the last 2 games, so that erased 14-3, evidently.
We'll see what happens there. Devin, appreciate it. Zach becomes a legend member. Zach, thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. The support, the memberships go a long way, so big thanks to you. Dirty Air says, any value in bringing Juice Check in? I saw this on Twitter.
Oh, my God.
Please,
oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Dude, he's like 35 and he's a fullback. Come on. No, please. For the love of God, no. I said that's my take. I don't know. Maybe he can help you with the tush push, John.
Oh my God. No. Hashtag no.
I'm happy you're on the same boat as I am, because I had like 4 or 5 people tweet to me and say, oh, well, this is good. This is good. And I politely told everybody no.
He's 33 years old. What is it with the obsession with just, I know this guy's name.
Yeah, but he's not even like I can understand some of the other. I can understand Von Miller. I can't understand Kyle Juszczyk. I'm sorry.
I can't. He's not even like, I think, he's like a 100-time Pro Bowler, because they just vote the same guy in at fullback every year because they don't know who else is playing fullback. He's not even a real fullback. He's like 230 pounds. He's more of a pass receiving fullback. That's not a fit for the Philadelphia Eagles, who use a fullback maybe 3 times a game. And that was when Ben Van Sumeren was healthy. Certainly not going to use him in the passing game. I mean, come on, people. Jesus.
Here we go. Real Zeal says, Reggie White had 21 sacks in a 12-game season. Reddick's 22 season. Not even close. Learn Eagles history. Taking a shot, Johnny Mac.
Well, the Real Zeal. If you're glad they want to take a test against me, I'll certainly take that challenge. But if you actually listen to what I said one of the greatest defensive seasons in Eagles history. I didn't say the greatest. I said one of the greatest, which it was. And you're a moron, but thanks for the $5.
Zeal. See you, Zeal. Johnny Mac roasted. All right, Johnny Mac, we got about 12 minutes until Chris Franklin gets here. We will see what he has to say about all the moves and the changes. Real quick, I'm going to talk to you, John, about the cornerback position. Is Keely Ringo ready, Johnny Mac?
No idea, but that's the plan. That's the plan. It's been the plan for a while. And I do think, the success of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean sort of broke some people. The assumption that, you got to come in and hit the ground running. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a fourth round pick that's 20 years old that, hey, he sits his first year, he learns under Darius Slay and James Bradbury, and then the second year he becomes your best special teams player, and then the third year you say, hey, your time's up. Let's see if you can be a starting cornerback in the NFL. That's more traditional than what happened last year with those two players. But everybody, microwave culture. We went through this with Nolan Smith. How many people were saying Nolan Smith this guy sucks? And then he's one of the best defensive players.
For it, and you were right. I was out. I thought he was not gonna ever get there, and he did. Man, he did. He really turned the corner.
Yeah, he's one of the best defense. And hey, you wouldn't even know it if Brandon Graham didn't get hurt and Bryce Huff didn't get hurt, because he probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity. Sometimes you just need the opportunity. But I mean, he's got to prove it on the field. And, it might be Eli Ricks. Everybody forget, nobody mentioned Eli Ricks anymore. They kept that guy around for 2 years for a reason. They think he could be a good cover corner. So they have young options, and the hope is competition makes them better. And don't underestimate learning under Slay and Bradbury, who are two very, very savvy players. That helps. So, yeah, I mean, that's not the worst plan in the world. Say, all right, I got a cornerback who's going to be 35. The history of cornerbacks is not great at that age. And we got a young guy that we drafted. He sat for 2 years. His time is now. That's the trick. When do you turn the page? That's the trick. But as far as anybody saying, "Oh, I know he's going to be great," or "I know he's going to be suck," or "I know he's going to suck," they're lying to you. Nobody knows. How would you know? He hasn't played, hasn't proven it.
I think he has upside. I just don't know.
Oh, he's got everything you need from physical standpoint.
Yeah, right. I know, but I just don't know if it's the right plan for a team that is in a Super Bowl window and you're trying to repeat. I know you're going to have some change and you're going to have to prevail, but I don't know if that's the right plan there to slot him in. Do you think they will bring in more competition for him? I thought Isaiah Rodgers might be a good one to bring in for competition. Obviously, that ship has sailed. Do you expect them to do something? Maybe even, John, we talked about Benjamin Morrison in the draft. Maybe that's more likely. With all these guys going, you got to continue to get younger on that defensive side of the ball, have young rookie contracts, especially with some of the names coming up. Maybe that's an option as a free agent.
I mean, to me, it would be, you're going to bring in more of a vet if you bring in somebody. I mean, to me, now you've signaled, all right, you're going to need a defensive end or an edge rusher. You're going to need an interior defensive lineman. You're going to need a tight end. You're going to need you can't afford, you already have young players, Ringo, Ricks. Now you're throwing Benjamin Morrison in the mix if he falls because of an injury, and then there's injury concerns. Now, this is a later signing to me. You bring in, some kind of veteran, maybe after June 1st, maybe after the first wave, just as sort of a safety net that I thought Isaiah Rodgers would provide. But again, not a 34-year-old. I don't want Stephon Gilmore. They're losing Darius Slay. You're not losing Darius Slay to bring in Stephon Gilmore. I don't want Rasul Douglas because you know his name. But there's plenty of corners that can be competent. Think about when they signed James Bradbury originally. Now everybody forgets about James Bradbury's 2022. He was a late signing, and he turns into a second-team All-Pro. Free agency isn't over after day one. And the Eagles will certainly bring in competition.
Yep, we'll see what they end up doing. Doing there is Eli Ricks. You think he has a chance to win that job? I know he has a little bit more experience, or has at least some experience on that outside corner in the NFL. Is he a viable option, or is that just kind of a depth piece that'll probably be on the roster this year?
I mean, if I find it hard to believe. I don't think he's physical enough. Like, he doesn't have the skill set that Ringo has.
Right.
But he can cover, and he's got ball skills. So, if you're willing to, and people like splash plays, he might be, if he ever turns into a starter, he might be a 5 interception guy that can't tackle Zander Krause, that kind of guy. Some people like that. I don't think Big Fangio will like it. So I'm going to lean towards no with Ricks, but they do have this fascination with him that I haven't understood for 2 years. So they like something about him, because it's hard to reason why he was on this team for 2 years. And the reason is because they think he has something that is hard to find. And it's obviously his ball skills.
We'll see what they end up doing at that position, John. A little turnover there, turnover at the edge, turnover on the defensive tackle position. It is a lot. I mean, obviously there's going to be turnover on a team, and I think your core is still in place with everybody. So I think you're in a good shape. I do think it's an interesting thing what they're going to do at that corner spot. If Slay is still out there, and maybe he's not going to the Steelers, I still say bring him back. 1 year, $8 million. Will that get it done? Maybe it won't. I don't know. I would do it if it was out there.
Oh, who? By the way, who I think is a really good player that signed with somebody in the division?
Okay, who's that?
Because you would ask me earlier. I was just
Paulson
Adebo.
Ooh, I saw that. He went to the Giants, right? Yeah.
Good now, he was hurt last year, but he can cover, man. He can cover at a high level. Now, he got 3 years, $18 million with 36 fully guaranteed. So, and the Giants are the Giants, but I think that guy can play. And then Odenigbo, which another Bears guy, I think he can play. Edge rusher. And he got a three-year, $48 million deal with $32 million guaranteed from the Bears. That sounds like a lot, but that ain't a lot for an edge rusher if an edge rusher performs. And I think he can play. So those are two of the best, I think, free agent signings. Trying to go down the list. Those are my two favorite ones, because you brought up Poona Ford, which I think that's a good one for the fit what the Rams need.
Yeah, that's why I like Poona Ford. I know he's not like a crazy splash player, but I do like him for the fit on that defensive line.
I also like Ryan Kelly, who's older, and I rarely like older players, but he's like a 5-time Pro Bowl. He's a really good player. And the Vikings have been so bad at center for so many years. And because they drafted Garrett Bradbury in the first round, like in a long time ago, and they just never wanted to admit, hey, we screwed this one up. And they just keep playing him and playing him and playing him, and he keeps getting quarterbacks killed. And they finally got a guy who can play. So I think that's a positive.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, we're going to talk to Chris Franklin coming up here in a second on the show. I'm going to get one more super chat here from Brian Pumper, who's relentless. Brian, what's up, brother? He says, fanboys, y'all the kids in line for register, and I'm Pops. Can I have Garrett, Crosby, Pitts? We have Jalix, Morrow, and Johnny W. at home. Boy, it's a good thing you're not the GM. I'll tell you that, Brian Pumper, because you're on a generational run of.
I don't think Brian's learning from his mistakes. Yeah. They're doubling down.
If Pumper was the GM, we would have Tanner McKee as your starting quarterback. We would have gotten rid of AJ Brown. We would have gotten rid of a bunch of other great players and slotted in Johnny Wilson to be your starting tight end. How's that team look, everybody? Good time to thank Howie Roseman, all right, for the work he's done. So good job by Howie Roseman. Interesting to see how the free agency has progressed to this point. It was a crazy day in the NFL world yesterday, and I think it'll be another crazy day today. A little bit less crazy, obviously, with some less names, but we'll see who the Eagles do. John, any targets in day 2 here you think the Eagles could go for?
Oh, boy. Let me check my list. Yeah, somebody who would you talk about cornerback, somebody who would excite the fan base is Asante Samuel Jr., but he can't tackle either. So I don't think that's realistic. I've talked about Draymond Jones, so I expect that to happen any day now. So that's one.
You think he's gonna be here, or is that you said that was?
No, I think he's gonna be here because of his history with Vic.
Okay. You said that with a little confidence, Johnny Mac. I'm reading the tea leaves.
Azeez Ojulari is a guy I've mentioned as a potential. He's only 25 years old. Another Georgia guy, so he'll fit right in. I think he might be in a cost-effective signing. Because remember, they're also playing the compensatory pick game, and they don't want big splashy signings that will affect. Milton Williams will be a 3rd rounder. Josh will probably be a 4th rounder, depending on the contracts that are handed out. But there's not going to be too many more significant contracts handed out. So those are the 2 guys offhand, I would think. And then when you start thinking about 1 year guys, then it becomes much more open-minded. Start thinking about older players, but that's for later in the process, I would say.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. So we talked about a couple of the options out there. Yes, Kyle Juszczyk. No, not interested. Azeez Ojulari. I do like John. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the offseason together. I like that fit, and he's a young player. We'll see if he would be someone they target. We mentioned Asante Samuel Jr. Can't tackle, but I know people like him. And then you mentioned Draymond.
If they're going for a younger corner, Christian Fulton is the guy I would focus on more than Asante Samuel Jr.
Better fit with Vic.
Yeah, better fit, better corner, better fit.
Is it Christian or is it just Christian?
Well, it's
spelled with a K, but is it just Christian?
It's probably just Christian.
Might be. Who knows? I know we're trying to be accurate here. All right, Johnny Mac, good stuff. Let's get to a commercial break, and we'll get to Chris Franklin, who's supposed to join us here at 9:20. We will see if we get Chris Franklin up. Big thanks to everybody for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button in the chat. Appreciate all of you guys. A crazy March free agency week in the NFL. We love the NFL because they always give us something. So here we are, a busy week in the offseason, a fun week in the offseason. So enjoy it, everybody. All the news coming in like crazy. Hit that like button. We're only at 124 likes, which is just pitiful. We got to get that number way up. And there's Chris Franklin, who just joined the green room. So we'll get to him in a couple of minutes here on Birds 365. Before we get to him, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out. Use the promo code YouTube150. Gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. You get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000 to deposit less. and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. We're joined now by Chris Franklin from NJ.com. Chris, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Tuesday morning?
Yeah, I'm doing well, guys. A little busy yesterday. Just a bit.
Yeah, and the break, a big one comes down. Will Freeze setting the market at guard. The Minnesota Vikings, 5 years, $88 million for Will Freeze. Penn State has taken over the world, Chris Franklin.
Don't say that, please, John.
Oh, please.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
If Minnesota had a quarterback, I might be fearful of that team. But they didn't sign the quarterback.
And JJ McCarthy, we trust is the motto up there, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way they want to go. But Vikings have been spending a lot of money.
Yeah, they got Jonathan Allen. Now, one team that is not spending money is your Philadelphia Eagles, Chris Franklin. What's your panic level? Oh my God, people are leaving.
Wait, let me check my plans. I think there's no bricks down there. All right, cool. Well, it was expected. A lot of these signings were expected, and basically, we're expecting it to be a second wave. Where you look at a lot of the type of guys that you saw sign last year in the second wave, guys that helped you out immensely. I know Becton wasn't technically a second wave guy, but guys like that, Vaughn that came in and helped out as well too. So they weren't going to go to top tier, and it goes into their whole entire philosophy a lot of times of and it's worked with them. Get the comp picks. These guys are going to spend, teams are going to spend a lot of money for the other guys. Get the comp picks, even though I know there's people out there that said, well, I don't know why everybody's so happy about comp picks, Michael's over. But yeah, it works out. It's worked out in favor. I have a story about it later, coming out tomorrow morning about it, but it's important. So we knew these guys.
Yeah.
Chris, some big losses, though. Who's the biggest one? Who's the hardest one to replace for this Eagles team? Remember, Chris, this team won a Super Bowl, in my opinion, because of the defense. They were the #1 overall defense in the NFL. The offense was great, but this team won a Super Bowl because of that defense. Now you're seeing some key departures. Who's the hardest to replace? What's the biggest loss the Birds had yesterday in free agency?
Well, I think right now, just in terms of depth and what they have there, I think the Josh Sweat one is the one where I'd be more concerned than Milton Williams. Both players are really good. I think when you look at Milton Williams, him being young, him playing in the interior and showing that quickness and that burst and that power they had, yeah, that's a big loss in itself. But you have Mauro Jomo, Booker. I think he's a guy that can go back and contribute and do well. And also, personally, I think when it was one of their first 2 or 3 draft picks, I think they get a defensive tackle to address it. I'm high on Darius Alexander out Toledo. That's a guy I think they can go get that guy and replace it. Edge rusher is tough because when you look at the fact that not only at Nolan Smith, he'll be back, he'll be ready, but he had that torn triceps. You don't know BG if he's going to retire or not. You have Alex Hunt. Yeah, I think he can do that as well too. Bryce Huff, though, we saw what happened with him. You don't know. It's kind of like, I think that's where edge rusher is a little more tougher to address. You're a little more worried about that spot. That's why I say Josh Sweat leaving.
Yeah, I don't disagree from a depth standpoint, but I do look at some of these signings. Isaiah Rodgers would be the one for me when I look at the contract and I say, all right, if Slay's not going to be back, and we still don't know, that door's not quite shut. But in theory, he's not going to be back, and I'm on board. I think Kelly Ringo has tremendous upside. I think you pencil him in, but you want competition. I think Isaiah Rodgers could have been a good safety net as that competition. Did that one, when you saw the contract, say, did that one surprise you at all that they just walked away?
Not necessarily. I thought he was going to get paid more than what they can do that, and that's another spot I thought they can address through the draft. I was shocked at the number. I thought he might have gotten a little bit more just for the fact that of his age and the fact that he proved that he could be a starter in this league. And even then, the Vikings signed. There's only the guys they signed. They signed a defensive, another quarterback too. It's not even guaranteed that he's a starter.
They brought Byron Murphy back, but
Murphy,
who's good, and he's really good. He got like $66 million, but Rodgers is now penciled in to be the other cornerback, which is, maybe that the Eagles can't guarantee a starting spot, but he could have competed. So maybe that factored into it. That was the one just contract wise. Milton, you understand. You got the biggest contract in New England history. Think about the pressure of that, Chris Franklin. Josh Sweat, big time money. Even Oren Burks. You don't pay backup linebackers $2.5 million and he gets 2 years. I get that. But the Rodgers one, I said, this guy could be a starter for you. That one, that's the reason I said that one maybe I would have thought about.
Hey, I think he was penciled in to be a starter before all that stuff went down with him. I think he was on that type of track. And also winning Super Bowl kind of helps. In fact, that now, hey, you know what? I got a world championship. I can say I have that on my resume. And you still want to go to a contender, still win. But when you look at that, you start looking at the other stuff and having to be a backup, not knowing if you're going to start still because you still have Keely Ringo here, and you still have to be a battle or go to a spot where you have a better chance of being a starter and you don't have to worry about that, and you get a pay raise. So I thought that was like, even with that situation, I think is better than what one he would have coming back. Even if the Eagles offered the same amount, I think that situation is better for him because instead of having to be a backup or waiting for somebody that's hurt or coming back on field, that suits. I think that suited him better than all the other options out there. If the Eagles, even the Eagles offered.
Chris, what do you think about that cornerback spot, man? I think Slay's gone. Isaiah Rodgers signed with the Minnesota Vikings. You think Keely Ringo's ready? You think they're going to bring in competition for him? What do you think of that spot on that defense.
I'll say this in terms of, I think it slays more, especially with the going out to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still think it's a shot, but I think the Steelers have the inside track on that one personally. That's just going off that because he remember saying on his podcast that Tomlin was a guy he could still learn from. Ringo, I think, is starting to develop. The only I feel comfortable with that, and we know AJ's honest in terms of AJ Brown's honest when it comes to like what he doesn't filter a lot when it comes to the fact that he saw what Keely was doing and the physicalness that he brings and the way he covers. I think he's right. The Eagles traded up to get him and give an additional asset to get him. They don't want to be just like, hey, you know what? We want him to be the best gunner in the league as a fourth rounder. Does that like you don't really want to see that one too? So I think they were giving him a shot.
By the way, Chris is giving away my secrets because 95% of my belief in Kaylee Ringo as a player is because AJ Brown told me he's going to be really good.
Hey, guys like that, no.
That's a pretty John. I think that's a pretty good one to be convinced by.
Yeah. It's like guys like that, they know. So I'm thinking more and more like I'm thinking they want to give him a shot. It's not like a worst case scenario. You hope it doesn't happen, but worst case scenario, knowing that you probably going to have all those picks next year. If you need to go at the deadline, you need to go throw a third or a fourth out to try to bring somebody else in. Yeah, you can do that. It's not optimal. I don't think he'll ever get to that, but they have that option available to do that once it be corrected. But I just want to make sure he doesn't. The only thing I want to see, especially going against his OTAs, is he's looked more controlled than the first time with a rookie when he was like grabbing really physical. He's still physical. And you got those hand placement in check. It's not going to get called for those illegal contact stats, then drives, and keep that defense on the field.
Since we're talking cornerbacks, I want to throw Eli Ricks into the mix at you, Chris, because, I mean, they kept that guy around for 2 years, but for a reason. There's got to be something that they believe that Howie Roseman, I think it's the ball skills. We kind of saw them in the preseason a couple of years ago in Baltimore. Can you see Eli Ricks being a sort of out of left field? You sit behind the scenes, develop, you learn behind Darius Slay, James Bradbury. Those are two really smart, savvy corners. Eli Ricks, I mean, they kept him for a reason, right?
I think if anything, he just fills in what Isaiah Rodgers did. Because I know they trained him to be a slot corner. He tried to use him inside there. I think he's much more suited as an outside guy. And you look at the opportunities that are around here. Quinyon, you got that one. Personally, I'm keeping Cooper DeJean in the slot because I think that's because it's not like he's going to leave the field that much because so many teams play at least that 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers so much so that you're going to have to keep him on there. So I look at the other position. I just think in the end, when you look at what you had to develop, like you got a drafted guy who you gave extra assets for, they're going to give more chances to that guy as opposed to the guy who was the undrafted free agent, even plays well. If it's close, they're going to get definitely Tigers runner. Unless it's something where Ringo looks extremely bad and you're like, oh, that's something. Then I think he's put Ricks in there to start and see what you have there. But I think he's maybe fills into that Isaiah Rodgers slot of being the backup as an outside corner, if anything.
Hey, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to shift to the offensive side of the ball. Tight end, Dallas Goedert. Uncertainty. Seems like the Eagles are doing the old, hey, go out and check your value. And then hoping he comes back and says, all right, we'll guarantee 2025 and we'll tax some extra money on 2026. And then you draft his successor. I think that's the best case scenario. 50-50, he's back. Where are you on that sort of? Are you leaning towards he's out, or are you leaning towards he's going to be back?
I think when you're looking at it in terms of a window, and I think the Super Bowl window here is at least 3 years, and counting last year as the first year. If you have him move on, and somebody reassesses the whole entire field, look who's available in free agency, and think, oh, maybe we could, if we trade this Goddard, he can make us even better Super Bowl team or have you. If he's gone, I think that your chances dip. I do. I just think he commands that much of a presence on the field when he's healthy, and that's I know the key thing is that when he's on the field, we've seen what he can do in the yards after catch. So I don't think he's leaving. I think it's more 60-40, unless somebody's, and we saw most of that money for salary caps. We know in the first 2-3 days that all what that money spent, the big money that he's probably going to want. So I think it's more 60-40 that he stays, unless he's like, no, I can't, I didn't want this new contract. And just judging by what we know, what we've seen in that limited time, like we see time in that in Dallas and everything, I don't think he's that guy. Like, wow, so I think he's back. I think it's a short-term deal. I think we're looking at a Helm, Mason Taylor, a Helm. Personally, that's why I think they trade. I think they personally, I think they trade back
down.
and trade
Yeah, Mason Taylor. That's a good. That's a good plan.
I like him, and I like Helm. Helm's a guy I like. That, but he's a bigger guy. I like the way he routes his run. Both of those guys, to me, when I was grading them out and looking at the limited stuff I've been watching in terms of that, because so like I like the way they run their routes. Blocking is still to be desired for a young tight end, but that's always, when you look at the young tight end, it's always
it's always a deal.
So
it's always a deal.
I'm
just amazed how many people forget how good was stinking Dallas Goedert in the postseason. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah. Led the team in receptions and receiving yards. I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to move on from him at this point, but
the only way I can think of is they're thinking, okay, if they want to get Jahan Dotson more involved and utilize him in the middle, but even then, when you go to the rundown, this team, I won't sound like a former reporter, a former person to be. This team used a lot more 12 personnel and 2 tight ends, a lot more than we expected. I think they finished like in usage, they finished 7th or 8th in the league with 2 tight end sets, and they threw it a lot of the time too. So you need 2 viable tight ends on the field, and Calcaterra, I think, can get you by for 1 year, and that one too. But who's going to be that second tight end? You look at E.J. Jenkins,
Nick Muse, Cameron Latu, future signed. Now, I bring that up. I bring up those guys, but that tells you the Eagles know they have to get better at tight end. That they brought in 2 future signings and former draft picks. That tells you right off the bat they know they have to get better at tight end. Quarterback, what'd you make of the big trade?
I thought Pickett could be expendable, especially on the last year of a contract. I didn't expect the Cleveland Browns to be the destination.
He might be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's you look around like that. It makes sense for him to do that. Let him be the bridge of whoever they draft, be the guy to back up, learn behind them, and that. So I thought the Browns would be an interesting partner at 32. Maybe that's what you looked at. But yeah, I was shocked that they sent him to Cleveland. They get back the pick they did, and also I was kind of shocked they got the quarterback back.
Yeah, they liked him coming out of the draft. They liked him a lot. They were thinking about him as a day 3 pick, Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, he's an athletic guy, and I like the fact that like Tanner Key proved he can be a backup. We all saw that in the last couple of weeks of the regular season. He proved he could be the backup. We saw in preseason too. He runs that offense officially to the point where you're like, all right, it's good enough. So I see that. I thought maybe they would maybe draft a quarterback in the back end or an undrafted guy. So that's what. So the fact they have that, and he is like 2 years in. So like it's like another competition now. We're gonna have to watch the back and quarterbacks. Like, don't just settle on one guy and just watch this. But
the Eagles are very cost-effective centric when it comes to backup quarterback, but I'm with you. Kenny Pickett, for whatever reason, wasn't very popular in Philadelphia. I think because he played poorly in the preseason. He when he came in Washington, and he ran the operation. I'm going to use a Kellen Moore saying. He ran the operation well. I do not like young backup quarterbacks with no experience. I don't like it because Chris, you're up against it with a backup from a talent standpoint. So at the bare minimum, I want somebody, again, Kellen Moore, hey, clean operation, man. Just run, especially when you have a team like the Eagles who have all these playmakers all over the place, the offensive line. I want somebody who could do what Kenny Pickett did against Washington and then week 18. Boy, I don't like Tanner McKee or Dorian Thompson-Robinson to do that. I don't think it'll happen. Hopefully you never have to see it. But
like I look at it like usually that first game, and like I give backups like a 3-game window, 2-3-game window, and because usually when you come in off cold, like so there's an injury, you think all the backups. That is a tough situation to come in where you're cold, you're trying to get used to the rhythm, and take over the office, that one too. But I also look like, okay, can you win 2 or 3 games with this person behind there? And then you start looking like, okay, how do you game plan around there? I just think with Pickett, you have to worry about your safeties have to keep creeping up over time because it's more of a horizontal offense as opposed to a vertical offense. And we know you bring those safeties in that one too. That starts to affect the run game too. I think at least when you have, and Pickett had his moments when you saw like the 30-yard pass and stuff like that in the quarter. He had his moments. I'm not going to say that one too, but I think more often it was easier. You didn't feel that deep threat a lot when it came to Pickett. And if it's an out route, it's a deep out, I'm like, is this going to go there? Is it good? All right, cool.
Yeah, right.
Zip on there. So I think McKee gives you that. We saw the timing of that. You saw the accuracy, which is the most important aspect of anything running the offense. The accuracy is there. And then with Robert Thompson, I still think he needs some development. There's still some things when watching some of those Browns games, like, all right, like you see the tools, but
where are you with the philosophy of it's good to have a backup who can run the same sort of system versus one where you probably have to change a bunch of stuff around? Because in theory, you can pretty much run the Jalen Hurts offense with DTR, but you probably have to ship things pretty dramatically to take advantage of Tanner McKee.
I think you can get by without having all those zone reads. It's like the only thing I think you're taking them out, and then they're taking the zone read out and the design run game out. And then you look at how often they use it. Is it enough to warrant that one too, as opposed to looking at the passing concepts and what do you do to attack defenses in the secondary, stuff like that. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, you know what? I think McKee is a lot better in terms of, I think when you look at the post, the outs, and everything else, you can keep all your passing concepts in there. You can get by and get creative in getting, if you want to attack the edges or hold a defensive end or edge rusher to make sure on the backside so he doesn't cut in, you can get creative and make sure that doesn't attack you, doesn't bother you. Like you should probably use his nose read, try to hold them in on top, hold them in so they won't attack you. So I'm like, all right, I'll do that. McKee
definitely has a better arm, but a cynic, not me, but a cynic might say, what passing concepts?
Johnny Mac, you're not sold on Tanner McKee like the rest of it.
No, I think Tanner McKee's fine. I just think you have to change the offense, and
yeah, that makes sense
from that standpoint, which is fine. I think Kellen Moore got a little bit rejuvenated when Kenny Pickett was in there, to be honest. So sometimes that could be a good thing in a short term, in a very short window.
Well, he's not going to be rejuvenated coaching New Orleans, that's for sure. But Chris, let me ask you this. Mekhi Becton has a big smile on his face today because John just read a guard contract that came down. Who was John?
Will Freeze.
5 years, $88 million.
88. A good player, though. Good player.
He's a good player, but that's a big marker for a guard. Mekhi Becton's got to have a big smile on his face.
No, I don't think it's affecting Mekhi Becton. No? I don't think he's in the Will Freeze category.
No, but it's pushing up the number, no? Rising tide lifts
all rising tide, lifts all boats. But I think Mekhi's is more than the Doc compared to Will Freeze.
All right, anyway, Chris. With that being said, this Eagles team just paid Saquon. They were a running offense last year. We talked about Goedert potentially leaving. I know you said you'd bring him back. I'm with you on that. And then Becton potentially leaving. How much does that change what the Eagles are going to be able to do in the running game? You know, Dallas Goedert's a rare breed of tight end where he can be physical in the run game and the passing game. That tight end, you know, John called him an endangered species, and I think he's right earlier on the show today. Good, bad, indifferent, offense evolve. What do you think of that with the changes and the doubling down on the Saquon contract, which in my opinion shows they want to run the ball again?
Oh, so that's why they have National Tight End Day, so that way we can remember the position is still around. Okay, I got that. All right, cool. But
Well, no, I said the guys who can block and catch at a high level, those guys are endangered. Usually, you just talked about with young tight ends, Chris, they can't block. I mean, you usually have Grant Calcaterra is a perfect example. I think Grant would be better than people think as a pass receiver. As a blocker, I'm not a big,
he's a good passer. He's a good receiver.
Yeah.
I like the way he runs those routes and even going back to Oklahoma and say he's a good receiver. I think I'm not worried so much as long as you have them. When in doubt, as long as you have Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson, I think you can get by. I know I left the right guard part out, but I think even with Steen in the run game, I think you'll be fine no matter what. Even that one too on the edge, because the way they can get to the second level and the way they combination block, I have no problems with that. It's more of the pass blocking if Steen's in there. So that's why if Becton or Steen's in there, if Becton's in there, I think I feel a little bit better than when the way Steen's in there for pass blocking. I still think Becton's back. I think you see a lot more.
I think the longer it goes, the better chance he is of being back. I think it's looking good. Yeah, Mackay's not getting a big deal. So I wouldn't worry about Will Freeze. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's fair, but he's got that knee issue, Chris, that he doesn't like to talk about. I think teams are aware of that. I don't know what's going on with it. Sometimes he's got to come out of games for a little bit. They might be scared of that. But performance-wise, I think he really hit a home run for the Eagles. It makes too much sense for him to be back if he's not getting the massive deal. And I don't think he's getting the massive deal.
I also wonder how many teams are trying to make him a tackle again. I look at that spot too. And if they're trying to go, oh, well, maybe you did well inside. Let's move you back outside. I think maybe you can still do some stuff there. Yeah. I wonder if they're trying to push him we know better. But to me, he's more effective. He's effective as that guard in this offense, especially anyway. And if you look at the way the market, in the way the offensive lines are settling themselves and the way it's shaking out. And also, I think it's a comfort thing. I think he knows he wants to be back here too. He's always mentioned how much this place has made him feel like he loves football again.
Yeah,
I think that goes a long way too. And that he's been honest about that. He's been honest about that, and I think he looks at the situations and he'll get a raise for sure. It's not going to let's copy the same contract. He'll get a raise, probably more signing bonus heavy as opposed to base salary wise, and they'll finagle the contract. They'll work it out, but more and more, I think he knows he wants to come back, and I think it's one of the things let's wait till the first wave comes out, have our sides come back and get it. If somebody did offer you some money, let us know, and then we'll go back and talk. But yeah, that one too. And then also you got the Cam Jurgens extension. That's the one I'm like, some of those deals. Those are the ones I see the deals are kind of. No, that's the position I'm more worried about in terms of extension. I know they have a year to do this, but with the contracts at center that were given out in the last few days, that's the one I'm like,
yeah, he's going to get big money.
Yeah.
Do you think the surgery pushed it back though? Do you want to see how healthy he is? At least it gives you an excuse to wait a little bit. I don't know if the Eagles want that excuse because they usually want to be proactive, but he's going to get big money, Cam Jurgens.
If it was something where he was already in a contract that was a bigger, he's going to his third contract, and something if he restructured would have given him $7 or $8 million in cap space, something like that, yeah, it's fine. But it was about $4 million, which is still not a decent amount, but it's $4 million and trying to rush to pay him an extension and then getting only $4 million in relief, 3 point whatever it is in relief. And you can wait a little bit. It's going to cost a little bit more back end, but we see how his team oh yeah, we'll just finagle it around. Yeah, your contract will be on the books till 2039. Okay, all right, let's just sign a deal and then we go here.
It's where Jeffrey Lurie deserves the credit, Chris. Not a lot of teams can operate the way the Eagles do, and they have permission to operate like that. So Jeffrey Lurie deserves some credit for that. Chris Franklin deserves some credit for knowing everything about the Philadelphia Eagles. At C. Franklin News, make sure You follow Chris on the X platform if it's up today. Hopefully, no issues today.
Blue Sky too. Same
Yeah.
thing with Blue Sky.
NJ.com. You can read them there, as well as South Jersey Times, Lehigh Valley Live, everywhere, Penn Live, everywhere NJ.com does their work. So you can catch Chris all over. I'll leave it with Kenny Gainwell. We never talk about Kenny Gainwell. Not a first wave guy. We knew that. Nick Sirianni loves him. Jalen Hurts loves him. Why not bring it back? Why not run it back? He's not going to be a starter elsewhere. Why not run it back with Kenny Gainwell as the backup to Saquon Barkley?
I think he's a good complimentary guy. But I think the biggest thing I look at is Will Shipley and him looming around. And I think they're really high on him too. I know Nick's admitted that's like Kenny's one of his favorite guys. I just think I don't know if he's going to be priced out for another running back, if they're going to be priced out of that, even though it's not a first weight, like he's not that starting caliber. I think he offers you a lot, and I think he'll not just as a pitcher, but as in the passing game. I think he's underutilized in the passing game a little bit more. And I think he's a better in between tackle runner than we give him a lot of credit for. So I think somebody's going to see a lot of value in him. I don't know if it's even just a 1 year deal. I think he'll want some more security, even if if he comes back for like a 1 year, 1 year, even then it's still like they have the big leverage play of having Will Shipley there, and they can just draft another guy late as well too. We've seen this team does a lot. It does well finding these running backs in the later half of the draft. So I think the Will Shipley. I don't think they're in a rush to do anything. It's going to be on their terms, and if they want to bring him back for a contract, and you do have Shipley, and he's proven that he can be pretty good behind his line.
Chris, well done today, man. We appreciate you joining the show. Make sure you guys follow Chris at C Franklin News. I just dropped him a follow on there. You guys should do the same. Chris, well done today. Make sure you guys read all his work at nj.com. Chris, good job today, brother. Thank you for joining in on Birds 365. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, man?
Appreciate it. Y'all have a good one now. Thanks.
All right. There's Chris Franklin joining us here on Birds 365. Well done by Chris. We appreciate him checking in. Johnny Mack, another little piece of news that came out during our segment with Chris. The Vikings continue to add. Javon Hargrave.
Earl Buddy, Javon Hargrave. Good dude, Javon Hargrave. Got hurt last year, torn triceps. Little bit older. They had a big
best days are behind them, but
yeah, he barely played last year. So, but they had a lot of issues on the interior of their defensive fronts last year, and you see it. They get Jonathan Allen now and Javon Hargrave, and you start to envision they have Jonathan Grenard, who's great, and Andrew Van Ginkel, who's great, and Blake Cashman at linebacker, who's great, and Brian Flores. That's a good defense on paper. That's a good defense on paper.
Now, will they get the quarterback right?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't believe in J.J. McCarthy, but that's because I haven't seen him play, I mean, I didn't see him play in college.
Yeah, right.
I saw him hand it off.
Yeah, even when he did play in college. You didn't really see him play in college.
Yeah. But Javon, when he's healthy, he can play, and he could play in San Francisco when he was healthy. So now more of a pass rusher than obviously run defender. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, they're a team that's all of a sudden starting to win in free agency. But again, winning in free agency looks good on paper, but you generally don't win in March.
I thought, what's his name? We got to get Ed on this week. Ed put out some awesome tweets.
No, we're not getting Ed this week because his son's getting married for the 47th time. They've had 14
sons.
Yeah. Well, they had one in Japan because he's marrying a Japanese girl. They had to have one here. They had a justice of the peace one. It's unbelievable.
Ed is like a world traveler for one stinking wedding. I love Ed though. Ed cracks me up. But he put out some great tweets last night of like Winning free agency is very overrated. All right. Remember who won free agency last year? I think it was the Bears, and they were 5-12 this year.
Well,
so
they're winning again.
Yeah, they're winning again, but at least they did it. I think they did it the right way this time. But anyway, Ed put out some good tweets.
Here's the thing. It's ironic. The NFC North, the Vikings are doing it the right way. They signed Ryan Kelly, center. They signed Will Freeze, guard. They signed Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, defensive front. They're doing it the right way too. Problem is they gave away their Pro Bowl quarterback because they drafted some kid in the, number 10 overall who weighs 195 pounds soaking wet and hurt himself the one time he got to play. I don't. So I like some of the things they're doing. I dislike Sam Darnold again, and people know my affinity for Sam. He took a freaking beating last year and played every game. That's another underrated thing about the quarterback position. That dude is durable. Again, you got a guy who's a rookie, weighs 200 pounds, plays one preseason game, looks great, by the way, and then he comes out of the game, and the next day he's out for the season because he hurt himself. And the other guy's getting pounded on for 18 consecutive games and plays through every single one of them. That is underrated to be able to do that at the quarterback position.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Josh B says the Bears are going for an off-season three-peat.
Yeah, well, they all, teams that have a lot of money tend to win, and they have a lot of money. And, Minnesota's got a lot of money to spend. Teams that have New England, has a lot of money, and they've done a good job as well. So that's kind of how it works. But I will say, I just mentioned it, Grenard, Van Ginkel, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. That looks pretty good on paper.
Yeah, no, it does. We'll see what ends up happening. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on today's Tuesday edition. Milton Williams, gone. Isaiah Rodgers, gone. Josh Sweat, gone. Oren Burks, gone. And Kenny Pickett, gone. And Darius Slay, presumably, possibly, gone. Johnny Mac,
but you got Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
We brought him in. Good acquisition. That's the one addition that we've made so far, everybody, is Dorian Thompson-Robinson and a 5th-round draft pick.
I don't panic over one day. That's my advice. It'd be nice to get some of these players, but the Eagles weren't in that position. Howie Roseman warned you all that they were not in that position this year. More of a maintenance offseason. The maintenance is underway. Players will be brought in. It's not going to be the splashy guys. They're not going to pay guards 5 years and $88 million, but things will start to move. And, the good teams tend to do well in the second phase of free agency. That's where the bargains are. And that's sort of where you set yourself apart. And that's not to say a bunch of these guys. Milton Williams is a great player, and New England got him. I love some of the things Chicago did. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman. Same thing with Minnesota. They all those teams got good players, but they've also had to give up some things. Most notably, as I said, Minnesota with the quarterback. It's a give and take. It's a give and take everywhere. Even though it seems like it isn't, it is.
We'll see what happens. Only one All-Pro, John, was available in free agency, and the Eagles got him. That was Zach Bond. So I guess they did get somebody. They just did it before the free agency period kicked off, but he was the only All-Pro available. So
they did that on purpose, by the way, with the Saquon extension as well. And as I predicted, it ain't going to work. It ain't going to work.
Wait a second. We cannot end Tuesday's Birds 365. how much of a fail was it? We didn't even mention it on Birds 365 the day after the press conference. It didn't work. I didn't see anybody talking about it yesterday. Did Saquon say anything good, Johnny Mac, worth sharing with the people?
Saquon said a bunch of good stuff. He's very similar to AJ with the Super Bowl. He was like, he got asked, what's it like to win the Super Bowl? And he was like, and same thing AJ said, but he's better. I think with people like that who are just so competitive and so ingrained in the process, to them, it's like, all right, what do we do next? And he's sort of in the same boat. And that, I think that personally, I think that's a good thing. He talked about helping the other running backs. I thought was interesting. James Cook, he talked about as a guy who got very excited when he signed his deal. So he wants to help other running backs. He said some interesting stuff, but I said before, and that's why the Eagles did it, to try to take the attention away from what was the exodus out the door. It wasn't going to work. It didn't work. And even before the goodwill attempts of Saquon and Zach Bond, it's not going to work when people leave out the door. That's all they care about. I mean, you mentioned it. I got like 3-4 people wringing their hands over Oren Burks. It's just the nature of it. You lose players and people get upset. And if you don't bring in players, everybody called this one of the worst free agent classes ever, because most teams are getting smarter and smarter and smarter, and they re-sign the players they want to re-sign before they get to the market. Doesn't mean there aren't good players. There are good players, but you can't say one thing and then come back and say, yeah, I need this guy. I need this guy. I need this guy. And please stop talking about the Von Millers and Kyle Juszczyks of the world. Forget about the big name mid-30s guys, at least until June. And then if nothing is built and they need an edge rusher and Von Miller wants to go chase a ring, maybe.
Right. They're not a foundational building block.
No. No.
All right, Johnny Mac. John, great stuff today. Great edition of Birds 365, a Tuesday edition. We'll be right back here tomorrow morning on a Wednesday edition. Will we be live on a football 24/7? Will Becton get signed? We'll see what happens, and we'll keep you guys posted on the channel for that later on today. Johnny Mac, great stuff, brother. We will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365 and maybe later on today on football 24/7. We'll see. John, well done, brother. Talk to you then.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, there's John McMullen joining in here on Birds 365. Great job by Johnny Mac, as always. Great stuff from Chris Franklin, and a great show today. The craziness of the NFL world. I love the NFL for this. I mean, it is funny. I understand. Remember when John used to say, my wife doesn't understand what I do in the offseason. Well, it's the same thing with me. My family's like, I thought the season was over. I'm like, it's not. It doesn't end. The season doesn't end. The NFL never sleeps, and I love that. It's a good business to be a part of, right? They never sleep. So good stuff there for the NFL. Crazy day yesterday, man, across the entire NFL world. Real quick, let's go. 747 in here and 176 from the likes. What the fuck? Come on, man. Let's get that up. 200, 250. Come on. We got to get those like numbers up. We will see what we end up getting, but that's a low number right there. So we appreciate all you guys checking in here today and listening. I know not everybody. By the way, I was looking at this. 35% of JAKIB viewers watch on TV. Did you know this? 35% of JAKIB viewers watch on TV. So it's hard to watch or hard to hit the like button when you're watching on TV. But good stuff, everybody. Appreciate all you guys being here. What do you think of day one? All right, let's recap. What do you think of day one in free agency? Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings, 2 years, $15 million, $8 million guaranteed, gone. Milton Williams to the Patriots, 4 years, $104 million, $63 million guaranteed, gone. Josh Sweat to the Cardinals, 4 years, $76.4 million, $41 million guaranteed, gone. Darius Slay to the Steelers, presumably, gone. Kenny Pickett traded to the Browns, gone. Incoming, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, in. Oren Burks, 2 years, $5 million to the Bengals, gone. How you feeling about those losses for the Philadelphia Eagles? Some of it is business as usual, right? You're not going to bring back everybody on a Super Bowl team. So I honestly look at the team and I'm like, well, you got Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis. Moro Ajomo. You got Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Trotter. You got CJ. You got Reed. You got Quinion. You got Cooper and Keely Ringo coming back. I know we got some losses, but the core of this defense is still here. Let's be honest, everybody. The core of this defense is still here. All right, you lost some players, but we're still good. I mean, you got most of those good players are coming back. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball. If we get Goedert under wraps, I'll feel much better. I'll feel much better because if you lose Goedert and Becton, now you're starting to have change on both sides of the ball. You might have to change the philosophy that you used offensively to win so many games last year, and that's bullying people in the running game. So we'll see about that. Chris Scott says day one was disappointing. I don't agree. I don't agree at all, Chris. I wasn't disappointed by one thing yesterday. I really wasn't. I knew Milton was gone. I knew Josh was gone. I knew Orrin wasn't coming back because you paid one linebacker. They're not paying two. I mean, come on, we can barely pay one. People thought we were going to pay two. So he was gone. The Pickett trade I thought was fine because you added a 5th-round pick. I mean, why not? What do we need Kenny Pickett for? Let's be real. Guy has a freaking rubber band on. It's like a rubber duck. I mean, come on. He's gone. And Slay. I mean, we didn't think Slay was coming back. So this is business as usual. I mean, I don't really think this is anything out of the ordinary, and I don't feel like this team can't recoup on this. I really don't. I mean, I feel like you got most of the good players you need on this team that are going to make up the core of the team, and they're all returning, and I think you're in good shape. So I can't agree with you there, Chris. I don't think it was disappointing. I mean, you lost players, but I don't know. Sliger says, my only real disappointment was that Burks was really cheap and he was a great backup at the end of the season. Sliger, I agree. I mean, John was telling me, well, they pay backups $1 million, not $2 million. I'm like, what the fuck's the difference? Just get a good backup, especially with the Kobe Dean injured. But, again, Sliger, you and me both, Sliger, you've been around long enough to know this. If our biggest complaint is that we lost a backup linebacker, I think we're doing pretty good in Eagle Land. All right? I think we're doing pretty good in Eagle Land, but no, nothing to concern me there. I didn't think they were going to sign him because, honestly, I thought he was going to get overpaid from the Super Bowl, and I thought they paid one linebacker. They ain't going to pay two. They also spent a 5th-round pick on Trotter, so they're not going to invest that much resources into the linebacker. I'm with you. Get it, clear cap. If they get Becton, I'm okay. If they lose Becton, how are you feeling? I don't know. I'd rather bring Becton back, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'd rather have Goedert than Becton. James, I don't know what you mean. James keeps saying Zander loyalty. Like, I never projected anybody was going to be here off of loyalty. I don't know what you're talking about. Yo, James, get out of the gutter. I know your team just signed Javon Kinlaw for a boatload of money, and that guy stinks. But get your head out of the gutter, James. I mean, James, I love talking with you, James. I love kicking football around with you. But when your head's in the gutter, James, you are lowering the conversation. Not elevating it. Come on, Jammers. Here we go. Brian Pumper, what's up, Pump? Day one evaluation. How Stella got her groove back. All these old fucks got big contracts. These dudes taking advice from the 76ers team. All right, Pump. That's a good comment. I'll tell you what, Pump. That's a good rejuvenation because the Sixers are fucking brutal. And boy, you're right. If anybody wants to learn how to get an old man paid, just look at the Sixers front office. They'll pay anybody over 35. God, don't even get me started. What a fraud Daryl Morey is. What a true and honest fraud. When I was a kid, everybody, I loved the Eagles. I've always loved the Eagles since I was a kid. But my favorite sport was basketball. I loved basketball. I'll never forget, and it's funny because I always say, Michael's the GOAT now. I was a huge LeBron fan when I was a kid. When I was super young, I'll never forget where I was when LeBron did the decision and he left Cleveland the first time to go to Miami. I'll never forget it. I was standing on my front lawn and me and my dad were doing lawn work together. I was cutting the grass. You remember those old push mowers that had the tiny little bag and you have to empty the bag into the brown bag? I was cutting our lawn and my dad was out there with me, and I'll never forget. I stopped and I'm like, "Holy shit, Dad! LeBron just announced he's going to Miami." I was a LeBron fan. I'm not as big of a LeBron fan today. All right, I'm a Mike. I like Mike. I like Jordan, but I respect what LeBron has done. But anyway, The NBA, what happened? What happened to the Sixers? What happened? It's brutal. You know, and people will say, you should be a fan when times are hard. No, fuck that. I used to go to games all the time. I spent so much money on that crap. They don't even want to field a good team. They want to pay 36-year-old Paul George and bum knee and Embiid and get rid of Jimmy and get rid of the good players who actually came here and helped us compete. Hard to support. Hard to support. I don't know what happened to basketball in Philly, man. I would love to. I really would love. You know what I would love, everybody? I would love for the Sixers to become competent because I would love to watch basketball consistently. I really would. I love basketball. I love the game of basketball. I really do. Actually, I'm playing in a charity game soon. You guys don't know. I got a shot. All right? I got a jumper. I got a jumper, and I can take it to the rack. I can take it to the rack. In fact, I even got a fresh pair of J's to wear in my charity basketball game coming up in April. All right? I got a fresh pair of J's. Which pair should I wear? They're right there. You want to see them? Huh? You want to see them? Which pair should I wear? Which pair should I wear? I got two pairs of Jordan 3s to wear. We'll see what I rock for. Zander got ice in his veins. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, baby. That shit broke, Zander. No, it's unfortunate, man. I really wish it would make a little bit of a rebound because it's just, I mean, football is the only, I like baseball too. You know, I'm a Phillies guy, but I was never a Phillies, all Phillies. I like the Yankees growing up because my dad grew up in the middle of the projects in Western Pennsylvania, and he had two stations. He had one station was the news, and one station was the Yankees, the Rangers, and that's it, I think. Yankees and the Rangers. So he was a Yankees fan. So I didn't like I liked the Rangers because I'm a hockey guy, and then I was a Yankees fan, and I always liked the Phillies because I'm like, AL, NL, I can like both. I can like both, but you want to see the Jays? I'll show you the Jays. I got two threes. I like to hoop in threes. I told you guys I got these. These are the new ones. These are the what are these ones? Oh, the Lucky Shorts. These came out recently. I got these. So I might hoop in these, but they're white. I don't love hooping in white shoes. Or I got the Fear Games. These are so underrated in my opinion. So I might do the Fear. I might rock the Fear Games in the charity game. I don't know what color the uniform is yet, but I think these are underrated. These are like not a highly talked about Jordan, but I love them. I love the orange. You know, it matches the hat I was wearing on Friday. All right. All right. Yeah, they do. They do, Bird Gang Girl. Yes, sir. You got it. You got it. Yeah, I like the Fears, Mad Bird. I'm a big fan of the Fear Games. I posted that Jordan quote. Yeah, Flex, I'm with you. I'm probably gonna leave the whites clean. The 12s, I saw the 12s. They're not as much for me, Abe. I do like them though. They are nice. I like the white ones with the navy blue on there. I got a pair of 11 lows too, but I don't want to wear them during the game. I like the 11s. Here we go. We can't give everyone on the O-line 16 to 20 mil. Becton can move around. We'll see. When the hell do you have time to hoop? I don't really, Philly Dot. I'm just playing in a charity game on a Sunday in April. All right? Not Easter Sunday. A Sunday in April. I don't really have much time to hoop, but I can hoop. I can hoop. 3s and 11s. Those are two good ones. I like the 4s too, but not all of them. Not all of them. Not all of them. You know, I always the one thing I love, and I know this isn't about like basketball, but Jordan, think about Jordan's impact. Like LeBron is a great player, but when you say GOAT, in my opinion, GOAT is more than just being a great player. I think GOAT is a conversation of impact on society, the cultural movement, the how you inspire young players and young kids. I mean, when did Jordan retire from basketball? His shoes still sell out every week. Nike releases a new Jordan every week. By the way, I'm trying to buy the pair that comes out on Friday. They're sick. A couple pairs come out this week. All right. And people, they still sell out. Like, think about that. I don't think people understand. Jordan 1s are still one of the most selling sneakers. 1s! The first Jordan ever! I mean, I think that's wild. Look at Eduardo. Eduardo, do you want to come over and be like my health coach or something, Eduardo? No disrespect, Z, but are you conditioned to ball? This shit will have you breathless within a minute if you're out of shape. Eduardo, worry about your own game over there, all right? When I put up 28-8 in the charity game, all right, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Fucking Eduardo. What a trash comment. Dude's trying to help me with my conditioning. No, you're right. It's a lot of running. You're right, Eduardo. Basketball is a lot like football. There's breaks. Hockey, you have shifts. Basketball, you're just up and down. You're up and down. I get what you're saying. I'm just messing with you. I get what you're saying. And to be fair, my conditioning after this season is probably the lowest it's been in a little bit because I've been sitting at this desk for 18 hours a day. All right. For many days. All right, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. You didn't really give me a comment on what you guys thought of the free agency because we started talking about Jordans for crying out loud. We started talking about Jordans for crying out loud. But we'll see. We'll see what I end up rocking on the game. Now I have to keep you posted with what I wear. Now I got to keep you posted. All right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's not the way I play. But we'll see. All right, everybody, I appreciate you all checking in today. We will be live as soon as the Eagles make a move. So if the Birds make a move, if Becton comes back, if they sign somebody on free agency, I will be live immediately, all right? Immediately. Can I dunk? What do you think I am, Twiz? I'm a white dude. I'm not even 6 foot. Twiz, come on, Twiz. I'm a white dude who's not even 6 foot. No, I cannot dunk. I can maybe touch the rim, but I cannot dunk. No. But anyway, all right, we'll be live as soon as something happens. So we'll see what ends up going on. Right now, the Eagles are still the favorite to sign Becton. We'll see. Curtis says, Z, aren't you a little disappointed day one? Goedert trade, no Becton deal, neither Slay or Rodgers bet. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm not. I don't feel the same as you, Curtis. I understand, but there's turnover. I mean, this is what it's like when you win a Super Bowl, this is what it's like. There's going to be turnover. And I don't really think Curtis, here's what I'll say. If Goddard's gone and Becton's gone, I think we're going to have some real conversations because then Howie's going to have, I don't think you can repair defensive edge, defensive tackle, cornerback, tight end, and guard in the draft. Like so there's going to have to be a trade, a signing, something of importance that comes in to replace those guys. But, we'll see. We'll see. Zan said I'm white. Yeah, I am. I mean, you guys see me. But I don't let that put me into a box. I always laugh at some people who allow that to put, oh, I'm white or I'm black or whatever. Don't stop letting people put you in a box in life. Stop. We all bleed the same red blood. All right? Stop letting people put you in a box. Nobody puts me in a box and nobody should put you in a box. All right? All right, we love you. I love you all. I read your comment, James. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody. Zander is an exciting one. I love it. Good stuff, everybody. Appreciate all you guys checking in today. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not. All right? Stay tuned. Again, I said I'll be live. If the Birds make a move, you know what to do. All right? Don't stay on Twitter. You come right to the JAKIB channel and you wait because I'll be live. And I'll get Johnny Mac up. Cilio might be on the Cilio show. He'll probably cover it as well. So we've had a lot of news on Cilio recently, man. Like every show of Cilio, there's been breaking news. So I'm looking forward to that. But appreciate all you guys being here. We have some videos up on the channel. We had Howard Eskin on yesterday. A bunch of great videos on the channel from yesterday's reactions to the breaking news and to the stories that came out. So if you need more content, there's plenty of it on JAKIB Sports. We appreciate all you guys. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.